Welcome back to Season 2 of Not the Same, a podcast that brings you true stories of real people sharing their personal testimonies of transformation. I am your host, Rachel Heimberg. This is our third episode of the new season, and as always, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you listening week after week. You are why I keep this going. If you happen to come across this podcast recently, I'm glad you did. Please take a minute and leave a review or comment on whatever app or platform you're using. We are available almost anywhere, so find your favorite and subscribe or follow. For anyone wishing to contact me with questions, comments, or ideas, or even just to say hi, please do so through the dedicated podcast email, notthesame.cfm@gmail.com. A number of you have already, and it's always a pleasure. Last episode, I was able to sit down with Houston Wendel, and it was very moving to see how God can take us from our lowest point and do something amazing in our lives. I also enjoyed the dynamic of having him and his wife share their stories back to back. They did not interview together, so hearing them share from their unique perspectives was a bonus. Today, I am privileged to have Wendel Jacobs here with me. He was actually one of the very first people I wanted to have share, but he kept putting me off. He finally agreed, and here we are. Last season, I did have his wife, Natasha, on the podcast with me, so now it's his turn. Wendel is a longstanding member of our church. He is currently head of several ministries, and he and his family are a great blessing to us here in El Dorado Park. I know the barest details about his story, so I'm ready to dive in. First of all, I want to say thank you, Wendel.
All right.
For agreeing to do this. I remember when I asked you, and you were like, I'm not interesting. Ask spa. You need to get spa.
All right. So my father met my mother. She already had 2 kids.
Okay.
So they were older than us. He added me and my brother. So the age gap between me and my brother is 3 years. So they got separated when I was 2. I don't have childhood memories of my mother. So all I remember, we were walking, my brother and my father. I had my father's t-shirt on. He was walking without a t-shirt on. That's the only glimpse I remember. And the next thing, we're walking into this house. Everything is foreign to me. So I remember hiding behind my father. My father introduced us. We at my uncle's house. This was in Everton, some place in Sibukeng.
Okay.
I was 2. I didn't know how my life would turn out. I knew nothing about nothing. I didn't know my father would leave us there because he worked, just behind Slovo. There are factories over there.
Okay.
Obviously, it would probably be challenging for him to travel. So we stayed with my aunt. Same thing with my uncle.
And how old was your brother?
He was 5 at the time. So same thing with my uncle. He never used to stay with his wife. So he had 3 daughters. It was a bit tough living in that house.
So your background real quick. Obviously, you've shared you're colored. So your father is?
Both of them are colored.
Okay.
I know a bit of my father. So my grandmother was actually Zulu. They're from KZN.
Okay.
And my father's father, he was colored.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, in this house, it was a bit of a nightmare for me. So I remember my aunt, when she came from work, she would have me scratch her back. While she's talking to her friends, I'll be scratching. Like, in my mind, I had all these colorful words towards her. As a 5-year-old, I'm thinking, this lady's making me scratch her back, and she's keep on yapping with her friends. They never treated us nicely. They used to call us words like, you are slow, you are useless. I would always wonder, when is my father coming back to take us from these people? So my cousins, they were allowed to come in late. When they would go out and go play whatever, they used to be allowed to come in late. Me and my brother, we were not allowed. Another thing I remember living in that house is we never used to get pocket money.
Okay.
They used to get pocket money. I remember all 3 of them used to have birthdays. I never used to know when my birth month was because there was never parties for us. This one time my father came and I saw him giving my aunt money, like to say, hey, here's some money just to help out.
Yeah.
So the following day, she's doing what she's normally doing, giving her kids money. And I went to her and approached her. I'm like, where's my money? I saw my father giving you money. And she snapped on me.
Wow.
She basically shut me down. Most of these things I kept to myself, all the abuse I went through. So my father got a girlfriend. So I stayed with my stepmother. So my brother stayed with my aunt.
Okay.
So I remember when we came from school, we used to take a bus, used to attend school in Ennerdale. I used to go to my aunt's house after school. I remember we were playing outside. Then my older cousin, Sandra, she came outside. She called my brother only to say, no, I just need him to do something. At the back of my mind, I knew she's going to go give him food and eat.
And she left you outside?
She left me outside playing with some other kids.
So during this time, real quick, did you say you moved with your dad?
My father left us at my uncle's place.
But then you said he got a girlfriend.
Yes, he got a girlfriend. So we lived down the street. It was more or less the same thing. I lived with a stepmom. So basically things went from bad to worse. I'm living with this lady, just the two of us.
Okay, so now you moved into where your dad's girlfriend is living.
Yes.
But then your brother, what was there a reason for that?
I really don't know. Maybe they liked him more. Maybe I was probably it was a lot of work. Didn't have time for that.
Okay, so you were still quite young.
And my father basically still the same thing. He still works the site.
Okay.
He used to come probably on weekends or every other week. So this lady, she used to beat me up. I've experienced physical abuse.
Wow.
She was an alcoholic. I
Okay.
mean, probably when I was 3, 4, until I started primary school. My father used to give me pocket money as well. And this lady would wake up in the morning and take the money from me.
To go drink.
Yeah. The thing is, I couldn't tell my father because he's going to be gone for like 2 weeks. Then I'm going to stay with this lady and she's going to abuse me. I can't even tell him.
And you understood that at such a young age?
I understood it because I figured things out. So if I tell him, he's probably going to hit her, but he needs to go to work anyway. So I'm going to stay with this lady who's going to beat me up.
So you never said?
No, I never told him. I was fearful.
And you were so small.
So fast forward, they broke up. So we lived almost everywhere because we never had our own place. So I remember we lived in Kliptown for about 2 years. We lived with my cousin in Extension 9, in some other place in Old Eldos. So we were just moving around. So eventually my father heard of Freedom Park. Before it got developed, it was just shacks everywhere. See where ShopRite is? It was all shacks. All those houses were not there. I remember we lived on the mountain in Freedom Park.
Okay.
So we lived there with my new stepmom. I used to have a lot of stepmoms growing up. So
were they ever married?
No, they were just living together. Irene, this lady, she was all right. She was a cleaner. She really looked after us. She really cared for us. I used to walk from Freedom Park all the way to Extension 9 to school every day. We used to leave the house at 6 and walk to school and walk back.
That's probably a good hour walk, don't you think?
It is.
And how old would you have been?
By then, I could easily have been 10.
Wow.
And life was a bit better because my father was now living with us, my brother. And
so your brother as well, you both,
yeah.
At some point your brother came back as well.
So fast we went to primary school, high school. Eventually, my father separated with his girlfriend, Irene.
They were together a long time.
Yeah, they were. And then there was 2 more other ladies. I forgot their names.
So real quick with this lady, you said Irene?
Irene, yes.
So she would have been basically the only kind of mother figure that you had.
True.
I mean, for that period. And you said she took pretty good care of you guys?
Yeah, she did.
Was there any kids of her own?
Yeah, she had older kids.
Did they ever come?
Yeah, they used to come. They were nice as well. She was from Tau, Welcome side.
Okay.
Yeah, her family's from that side. So we went once with her. For me, it was exciting as a kid. I've never traveled so far in a taxi.
Wow.
With Irene, life really turned around. She used to give us pocket money. She never earned much, but she was very kind.
Was she affectionate?
Not so much.
Not so much.
But she was a caring person.
Okay.
Yeah, she would really care about our schoolwork. I remember when I was in grade 6, she used to like get my schoolwork, my books, and she'd be interested. I didn't know how to read.
You didn't know how to read?
I didn't know how to read. No, I used to stutter through words, like short words like the, them. It would be like challenging. I remember in class, we take turns to read.
Yeah.
Oh man, I used to hate that. There was a bunch of us in class who didn't really read. So it was a joke for us in class. So whenever it's my turn, my heart used to race.
Wow.
But Irene really, that lady, she really took interest. It wasn't that really intense,
But maybe just somebody that cared. It makes a difference in a kid's life.
He really cared. Another thing I can think of, we really never went out, like to go eat out. My father used to come with food wherever he bought the food. So as far as going out, no. I believe now that I'm grown, used to get good money. You used to get paid on Fridays.
Okay.
Used to get drunk every weekend.
So that brings me to a question. How was your relationship with your dad? Obviously, you said in the beginning, he wasn't really around. Now he's around more.
Yes.
How did that change the dynamic?
I wouldn't really say I was close, like buddy with my dad. I wasn't really a fan of my father because There's a lot of things I wanted as a kid. He
Mhm.
denied me of them. I used to want a bicycle. I used to want this and that. He would just deny me.
Mm.
One thing I hated about him was he used to give me pocket money. He used to give me like a 50 rand. Then I would plan it out Monday, 10 rand. I was excited, like, yeah. Then Sunday night, he would come and take his money back. He did that as far as I can remember. I used to dislike him for that.
So he would give it to you on a Friday.
Yeah, Friday when he gets paid, he used to give us pocket money. I could have blown that money, but I know how it's like at school. Some kids
Yeah.
go and buy stuff. You were standing there. So I thought, nah, I'm gonna break this down. Come Sunday night, he knew that if I give him money, he's not gonna spend it.
So he'd come and take it back
So he would come Sunday evening and says, that money I gave you, I need it back.
every week.
Every week he used to do that.
What about your brother? Did he just take his money and run?
I don't really know. Actually, should ask him. I never got a chance to ask him.
Mm-hmm.
Did he also take his money? Because Friday he would come buy food, disappear. He'd come back Sunday.
So now the money's gone. So he's looking for that 50 rand that he gave you.
One thing that really ticked me off this one year, they used to get bonuses on December,
Yeah.
when the factories closes. They used to close like the 15th of
Mm.
December. He never came home. He came home the following year. All his money is gone. He blew it all. Whoever knows what he did with it.
Wow.
He came back January.
Wow.
I used to have one or two shirts for school, but here the collar, it has holes in it,
Mm-hmm.
one pants. I mean, he could have made life much easier for us,
For sure.
but he chose
For
not to.
sure.
He chose to live his life
Yeah.
with his friends and his cousins. That was his big thing.
Mm.
Drinking alcohol, going to parties. We were like basically like an afterthought.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Were you close with your brother during this time? Because I know sometimes kids, you're both in the same situation. It either draws you closer or you live your life and he lives his and no one talks about it. So sometimes you can either find yourself like a best friend, we're in this together, or you fend for yourself, I'm fending for myself.
Well, we never spoke about it. I guess it's something that we've never seen. I mean, as a kid, we were never told, we love you guys.
Yeah.
I like you. Come give me a hug.
Mhm.
All of that was foreign to me.
Yeah.
Foreign. I don't know what was it like to be told, I love you. I'm
Mhm.
proud of you. You did a good job. That's how we
Yeah.
grew up with that attitude.
Yeah.
So if someone would come along and says, wow, good job, what are you talking about?
Mm.
And me and my brother, our relationship was okay. We were never like drawn close together. We used to fight a lot,
Mm.
probably because of teenagers. We were never really close.
So as you get older, now you said him and Irene break up or they go their separate ways.
Yeah.
What age do you think you were?
I was probably 16 by then.
Okay. So was that pretty rough for you? Just
It was. I really liked Irene.
yeah.
It really hurt me.
I mean,
Because
she was
someone
there
who
for
really cares, yeah.
10 years, were they roughly?
Probably more than that.
Yeah. 'Cause you said you were 3 or 4, maybe 12, 13 years.
Yeah, Irene was quite good towards me and my brother. She was really
Wow. Do you still keep in contact with her?
no. I've seen her probably 2015. I don't know whether I think to take a number,
Yeah.
but I would really like to
Some-
see her.
you can sleuth it out.
Well, since you talk about finding people, so my older sister, remember, I told you. So yeah, her name is Michelle. She's probably 44, 45 now. So she was looking for us
Okay.
like day and night. So her father passed away before I was even
So
born.
you guys share a mother.
Yeah. So obviously when that separation happened, she went to go live with her father's family because my mom was one of those mothers who didn't really care. She was young and wild. So she went to Woodbank to go live with her grandfather.
Mm.
And my older brother Nazir, I'm not too sure about him. I've seen him once in my life.
Okay.
So I remember she told me that when she used to like clean the house as a young girl, she used to talk to God. It's like, God, please one day give me a husband that will allow me to go look for my brothers.
Wow.
Yeah, she told me that I was in tears.
That's crazy.
So fast forward, she gets married to her husband now,
Yeah.
Alfonso. Good guy. What she prayed for is exactly that guy.
That's amazing.
She traveled everywhere looking for us. So she was on the opposite of the world. We were the side of the world, completely disconnected. So she grew up, she worked,
Wow.
and she got married now to this guy. Obviously, she explained to him
Yeah.
and ran with her plan. We'll do that. So she drove everywhere asking people, my brothers. She went back where we grew up. Eventually, she met some people who knew my father, his cousins.
Okay.
But like, yeah, we know where he lives. So got a number, call my father. It's like, hey, I'm looking for my brothers. I haven't seen them in forever. Just to track back a bit. They're in Geluksdal, where we're originally from.
Okay.
Same thing. My father was working distant job. My father, he had a house, he had a tavern. You know, life was kind of good. So my father used to go home probably every second week or once a month because of his job. My mom, her job, I guess, was supposed to be running the business. So she had a boyfriend, so she would disappear. Things were so bad. She told me this one time that she remember she had me on her back. I was crying.
This is your sister now.
My sister
Okay.
and my older brother. She went to the neighbors to go ask for bread for us
Wow.
because my mom just disappeared.
How old?
Probably a year old.
And how old
Couple of-
would she have been?
She could easily be 10.
She was just a kid, and she has this memory, obviously, of taking care of you.
Yeah. So eventually she found us.
What year did she find you?
So I could easily be in 17.
When you were 17 years old?
Yeah, she came and wow, is this my sister?
Wow.
We used to hear stories about him,
Yeah.
my father, but my father never occurred to him. Let's take it to me.
Yeah.
Eventually she found us and she was so glad. She was so happy.
So you're 16 roughly, and then Irene leaves, and this is a big change again in life. And then obviously you reconnected with your sister when you were like 17. But during this time, this is high school. How did this translate out in your life? I know you now, and you're kind of a quiet person. I know you can get outgoing sometimes. I mean, I know you like jokes. You're kind of a jokester, but you're more reserved. How did you handle this change of high school?
In high school, I was a bit of a menace. I know it doesn't look like it. We used to like joking a lot. Even when you just came to church, we were those people always teasing people.
Okay.
So in high school, we were those kids. We just walk out while the teacher's giving a lesson. We just randomly walk out of class, jump over the walls, go home.
Okay.
Never used to care much about school. Do you know when you're going through things at home, somehow it works. It works out in a negative way.
For sure.
For me,
Yeah.
it was school.
It always manifests somewhere. But some kids throw themselves into it and they just study, and then other kids act out and they're just like, forget this.
Yeah.
Did you do well in school?
I did fairly good. In primary school, while Irene was around, I used to be like second in class.
Wow. So she really must have helped
Yeah,
you.
so came to high school, like things kind of went down a bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
So did you find yourself getting into trouble? Like, did you experiment with substance or alcohol or?
luckily the environment we grew up in, there was no exposure of drugs. We used to
That's good.
drink once a year. It used to be a big thing back in the days, especially December times.
Yeah.
The parties would happen. So I used to drink that time. For me, it was just having fun. But from January to November, no alcohol.
So you weren't really exposed.
No,
So
to
you just mess around and okay.
basic stuff. It wasn't nothing hectic,
Yeah.
being wanted by the police or none of that. We were fearful of our father because my father was quite strict. At 6 o'clock, you need to be in the yard or else you're going to get it. So we used to play until 5 to then we race off home.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how it was.
So during the week when he wasn't drinking, was it a bit better?
We never used to talk. TV used to talk to us. We just sit and watch TV. So there was no conversation. How was your day? You know, like how things are now. Like,
Yeah.
be interested. None of that. Just monologue. You just eat your food, bath, watch TV, then bedtime.
Okay.
That's it. Wake up and do the same thing again the next day. There was no really communication.
Yeah.
All of us were just quiet. I used to eat in that corner, my father that side, my brother there. That's how it was most of our lives. No communication.
Yeah. And then you said a couple other ladies came in and out.
Yeah,
So
it never lasted. So I remember he was single for a long time. He just used to enjoy going to his friends, go drink and come back. So most of the time it was just me and my brother at home.
and then you're 16, 17 now. Your brother's already out of school, I would imagine.
Yeah. So my father, he was the one. Despite him being absent, not physically, but
Yeah.
emotionally, he wasn't really there for us. But he used to go to work, buy food, the basic things.
Yeah.
He met our basic needs. I won't really write him off because me picture him being completely out of our lives. Our lives would have been a disaster.
For sure.
We have family who don't really care. Like everybody's for their own.
Yeah.
That's how it
Well,
was.
you can see the dynamic of kids need parents. And I think not having a father is worse than
Yeah.
having a father that's there but not there. Even an emotionally absent father in the home is better than no father because it does teach you something. But obviously, those years that your stepmom was there really makes a difference. Like you said, she was interested in school and, and I mean, I can see your dad probably had no idea what to do and was like, I don't know, ship him off here, ship him off there. So, I mean, I get it. When people don't have Jesus, they don't know how to act,
Yeah, true.
So then high school, You finished?
Yes, I did.
So even with all your shenanigans, you still.
Yeah, I failed one grade in high school. It was grade 10.
Okay.
It was one of those years not caring.
Yeah.
So failing was kind of good. Katleo, she was the one. I've known Katleo for a while. She
Okay.
would always tell me about Jesus,
Yeah.
but I used to ignore her for a good 4 years. She'd always invite us to church, but we were just knuckleheads. So the year I failed, it really hit me hard.
You grew up with her, right? You guys knew each other from before 10th grade.
Yeah. Katleo was actually close with my brother
Okay.
and Dan, her husband. Katleo was the cheese girl back in the day. She always used to have money. So
That's one of my favorite South African terms. Is a cheese boy or a cheese girl.
cheese girl. I couldn't really show myself too much, but she was really attached to my brother
Okay.
and her husband.
So the three of them, they were like good
They were
friends.
friends.
Okay.
She used to pay for them going to town. She was a girl with money.
So you failed 10th grade
Yeah,
and it kind of freaked you out?
it did. And she came again. I remember it was January. I got saved on the 3rd of January, 2005.
Okay. Had you had any sort of
Say-
religion in your home before this? Did you ever go to church?
We did go to church. It was a 12 Apostolic Church, but
Mhm.
all I know, my uncle, he was one of the priests. They smoked, they would curse. So there was no one really challenging you to say, you need to repent or you're going to go to hell.
Yeah.
First time I heard of really hell was Sulukatleo
Wow.
telling me about Jesus. But for me, I brushed it off. I really never heard of hell before.
Mm.
For me, almost like a fairy tale. Hell,
Okay.
what is it? The 12 Apostolic Church, they were not really into being born again. And
Yeah.
it was just like basically going to work to clock in.
Religion.
We went to their Sunday school. One of the priests, he made us all turn around as kids, look behind. We all turned around. What did you see? The wall? Like, no, you guys saw Jesus.
What?
Like, so we decided just to love our lives,
Yeah.
as normal people. Back then it was normal to drink, to smoke,
Yeah.
to steal.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard that from a lot of people where you kind of know it's bad, but not really because everyone's doing it. So it feels very normal. Things that are not normal feel very normal.
Yeah.
So she tells you about Jesus and you brush her off, but then
Yeah, I failed. So she invited me to church. I remember I came to evening service on a Sunday night.
what made you come this time?
Probably because she was nagging. And by then we were kind of close.
Mm.
So I came the evening.
Okay.
One of the guys came, he witnessed to me. I can't even remember what was preached.
Nobody does.
So I repented. I remember going back home. I told my father, you know what? I'm going to start going to church now.
What did he say?
The funny thing is, before that, he would always tell me, go to church, go to church. So then I started coming to the Potter's house.
So do you think, I mean, like when you said you repented, were you serious?
I didn't really feel a thing
Yeah.
after praying the sinner's prayer. I just decided, you know what? I want to come to church. Probably one of the things that still stands in our church to this day, people were coming and talking to me. That kind of drew me in. Like
Yeah.
people show interest in your life. Growing up as a sinner, no one really cares about you.
Mm.
Everybody just look out for their own. What can they get from you? And I remember start coming to church. Eventually, I started coming to outreaches. There were a lot of guys that I used to look up to, and that really got me grounded in church. I never had much clothes. I used to come with school shoes to church, like wear pants, school shoes, just a shirt.
A lot of kids you see now, they do that.
Yeah, especially when you come from a background where poverty.
Yeah.
That was my story. So I started coming to church. There are a lot of guys who were talking to me, showed interest, would ask me questions.
Anyone in particular that would stand out?
Yeah, so one of the guys in the past was Sean. He passed away. He used to play drums in our church. Liban was also there, one of those guys.
And you guys saved under Polacco?
Pastor Polacco, yes.
Yeah.
You know what? Going out, Father Sounds introduced me to McDonald's. I never used to know McDonald's.
Yeah. Because you never went out. You said your dad would just
Never,
bring food.
never. And it wasn't fancy food. It's, like food they make a fire, put meat on it, that type of meat. When my father says he brought food, I mean, it tasted good. So
Yeah.
So the Potter's house, they used to take me out a lot. I remember they took me to Spur, it was Liban. I had two guys like Patricia, the one who passed away.
Yeah.
I'm holding the menu. I'm nervous. I'm thinking, I got money. How am I going to pay for this?
Aww.
It was either Liban or Patricia that saw the nervousness in my face. And she said, relax, we know you don't work. And you know what? People investing so much money. Patricia played a big role in my life. I remember when I turned 21, she actually threw a 21 party for me.
Mm.
and she had a little fellowship with some. It was a handful of people, but that was really special.
Because you said you never had birthdays even growing
No,
up. So-
never.
so-
For me, that was the first birthday I had.
Wow.
So yeah, it was amazing with Patricia being her. She was a great blessing. I remember as new converts, probably even 4 years, 5 years into my salvation. We used to go to her house Saturday night and cook. Then she would take us home. Couple
Wow.
of guys. Then after church, we used to go to her house. You know, those people, you would think this lady every weekend we at the house. Isn't she tired of us?
Yeah.
She had a big heart.
Wow.
Every
And she was an
Sunday.
older single lady, right?
She was. She used
Yeah.
to work for SABC
Okay.
as a receptionist every Saturday. And those fellowship grew. And when young converts came in, I remember Nandi as a young convert, she came in, she was part of those fellowships. Those fellowships, they're the ones that really got young people hooked up.
Yeah.
So a lot of people grew. Patricia used to spend a lot of money on food, and she was never stingy. She would buy cool drinks, and that really got me hooked into the church,
Yeah.
those fellowships.
That's interesting though, because you speaking about the people who invested in you, and I've talked to so many of the other people who point to you and say how you've invested in them, obviously because you probably know what it's like. Like
Yes.
you get it, and probably not even on purpose. It's not like, oh, I got to be like Patricia, but it's something that's in you, because I know specifically Jabu definitely
Yeah, I remember
commented.
Jabuk.
Basically, if it wasn't for you, he would not have come back to church, because he's like, this guy has a family. What is he doing at my door? Like, I could give him COVID. Like, he was just so shocked that you would care. And it's just amazing to me that the number one thing in every time I've talked to somebody is the people.
Yes.
Like you said, you prayed a prayer and you knew you needed something, but it wasn't until you saw the love of God's people that you're like,
Yes.
I need this. I need to stay here. And that's like a theme over and over when I talk to people. And it's crazy that it's so simple, right? It's
It
just
works.
simple. It's just food. It's just being nice to people.
Yes. It's something we're never used to in this life, and people are never kind.
Yeah.
People just want to rip you off or lie to you. Come into the church, you would almost think they've been fake.
Mm-hmm.
Why you being so nice? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
people used to pop out money. I remember leaving this one year, he paid for my school fees.
Wow.
I think he took out 900 rand out of his pocket. People like Pastor Sean, he bought me shoes.
Wow.
Those are one of the things that, you know what, church people do things that our own parents, our own family
Yeah.
would never do for us. So
Mhm.
obviously we get drawn where love is.
I know it sounds so simple and so cliche, but that's what the Bible says. I mean, it's so simple. You just love people.
Yes.
I mean, you said it draws people in. So you came in, you got saved. How long had you been saved when you saw Natasha and thought, I'd like maybe for her to be my wife?
I came to the church 2005. If I'm not mistaken, she probably came 2009, round about there. Probably around about 2010, where I became interested in her.
Yeah. She's a little bit younger, and so she got saved, and she was just in the youth and outreaches and stuff, and you would be on the same transport or whatever with the outreaches, and she was just going along in her life, and then she was like, no, I don't want a boyfriend.
Yeah, she was one of those tough cookies.
So what was your perspective on that?
I remember we were just, outside
Mm.
by the door, and everybody was outside, and she was there. And when I saw her, it was just one look. Yeah, she didn't do anything special.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked her. Obviously, there were people who were opposing that.
Yeah.
Back then, they never thought that she's the one for me. I wasn't good enough for her. They had their reasons why. I remember this one time after church, I walked her because she used to walk alone. So I said, let me walk you. I'm going to ShopRite. I don't think I was going to ShopRite, but anyway. So we were walking, just talking general stuff. And there was one of the guys, he was driving the transport. So he saw me walking with her. Oh, the guy chewed me out the evening. So I just backed off. But I knew deep down I liked her. So fast forward, there were other youth converts. Some people, they get saved and they're radical. So some people thought that's a good idea for Natasha to date those guys.
Yeah.
But for some reason, she was never interested in that.
So obviously don't name names, but are any of them still around?
No, none of them are.
But you are.
Yes.
There you go. So there you go. Proof's in the pudding, they say, right? Anyone who listened to Natasha's will know that side of the story, but she did mention privately before. The way she put it was so classic. And she said there was some people and they had other ideas. She said, but I knew what I wanted and I wanted Wendel. That's how she put it. He was the one for me. And I know Natasha, she's very stubborn. No one is going to change her mind. So obviously it worked out. What year did you get married?
2013.
2013. Wow, so you liked her for a while then,
Yeah.
a few years. And then obviously you've got your 2 kids and the rest is history, they say. Or should I say the future? We don't know what's coming next.
Anything can happen. We're just trusting God to do what only He can do.
Actually, maybe you can share as a follow-up just a little bit, because when I spoke with Natasha, she was in the middle of her battle with cancer.
Yes.
So maybe you can just kind of share that little tidbit before we close up. What's kind of going on now?
So last year, in November, before we went on holiday, she went to go get her results, and the results were good. The doctors couldn't see any cancer in her body, so she's cleared. She has no cancer.
Which is a miracle.
Yes, it's a
No.
miracle.
Everyone was praying very, very hard. And I did mention that on the podcast that she was battling cancer and for people to pray. But now we fast forward and it's been a couple months and she looks great. I think I told her, I said, the next service and your family came in, I could literally see everyone was just so much happier
Yeah,
without that weight.
yeah.
God's still working on your life.
Yes, still in the process.
So your sister, do you still have contact now?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We call each other just to keep in touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, with my mom, she's, I don't know what words, but
Did you ever meet her when you were growing up?
so when my sister found us, she actually took us to her.
Okay.
You know, you thought haven't seen you guys in forever. Come here. None of that. Like, oh, hi.
Wow. And you hadn't seen her your whole
My whole life. So when I saw her, oh, this lady's gonna jump for joy, but none of that. No hugs, no come here, no kisses, nothing.
Wow.
She's just living her life. So she has 3 other kids that she added.
How old were you? 17, 18?
Yeah, I don't know about that. No emotion from her. I guess that's who she is. What happened is my mom is a result of an incest. So uncle slept with one of the family members, so she gave birth at the hospital. Her mom left her there as an infant. There was a nurse there who couldn't get children. So she asked, let me have this baby.
Wow.
That nurse, she took my mom, she raised her. When the nurse died, she left this chunk of money for her. That's when she went crazy. She was partying, going everywhere, spending the money like crazy.
Wow.
But today, she lives in poverty.
Before you were born, your mom had 2 kids.
Yeah.
And then it's you and your brother.
Yes.
And then 3 more.
Yes.
7.
Yes, yes, 7 of them. And those 3 kids, they're not a blessing in her life. They're just using her.
Yeah. Well, they repeat the cycle. I mean, we see that over and over again. If you look at your life and their life, the difference is you had somebody in your life, Katleho, that cared enough to tell you about Jesus.
Yes.
And eventually that made the difference. That encounter made the difference when you were, how old were you when you got saved?
I was 17, I think. 17.
Yeah. 17 was a big year in your life.
A lot happened there.
You lost Irene, then you meet your sister, then you see your mom, and then you get saved probably within a very short amount of time. So I can't even imagine the emotional turmoil you would have been. Speaking as a mother, to think when you're 17, you know, you're halfway between a man and a child. You want to be a man, but in so many ways, you're still so young. And to have to deal with all of this at one time with 16, 17, right around this age, that's a lot. And God spared you.
Yes.
Especially, I'm sure, when you look at your siblings and I think that could have been my story.
Yeah.
Is your dad still alive?
No, my dad passed away in 2018.
Okay.
He was really sick. So he was like a thief on the cross. Remember me? I just prayed with him the Sunday evening, the Monday he passed away. So he just made it.
Yeah, but that's a miracle.
Yes. So the Saturday I spent time with him and I invited him to church and he said, no, not now. But remember, he couldn't sit long. He said, no, I'm going to bed now.
Yeah.
I remember the Sunday evening I was in prayer. So my brother called me and said, yo, this guy doesn't look good at all. We took him to Bara. We got to Bara. My brother spoke to this other man. So he said, now come, let's go. There's a wheelchair on the other side. So I was standing to him. To this day, I still believe he's God, whispering, pray with him. So I said, let's pray. Let me lead you to Jesus. Yeah. And we did.
And he didn't hesitate.
No, he didn't at all. He didn't fight it. I led him to Christ. They booked him in. I remember the Monday, I just came from work. I just walked in and I got a call from my brother. They said, no, they called us. They said, this guy is gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, he made it.
Yes. Faithful years over years, God looks at it. And
Absolutely.
family gets saved because of us, our faithfulness. So
yeah.
I'm glad he made it.
No, absolutely. I have no problems at all with people that make last minute decisions because we know that God wants everyone to repent and be saved. So if somebody can just make it to heaven like that, like you said, the thief on the cross, that's fine. I'll take it. As long as I can take you to heaven, I'll take you anyway. Kicking and screaming, I will take you. That's what we want.
Yeah, I've prayed actually for 2 people like that. Well, with my father, it's 3 people. My brother's ex-girlfriend, his girlfriend had a baby. So she was sick. She could easily have been 12. She was laying in bed, sick. So I remember with Pastor Nachi Ashton, we went there, I led her into a sinner's prayer. Think about a week later, she died.
Wow.
Another one is from Natasha's side. So I prayed with a guy, he had a stroke and he had HIV. So I prayed a sinner's prayer with him, the same results for that guy. About a week later, he died as well.
Wow. So if we have anyone that's dying, we need to call you because you can pray the sinner's prayer with them quickly. Wow.
Yeah, can you imagine someone who never used to know about Jesus? Like, oh, you made it. What? You made it.
Think about, if you want to bring some levity, think about your dad. He lived his whole life for himself.
Yes.
But at the last day on earth, he prays and then he goes to sleep and wakes up in heaven. I mean, he has to have been like, no way. Yes. How did I make it here? How did I mean, but that's a picture of the God we serve. Is just grace, I think God has a sense of humor for that kind of stuff. Absolutely. And you didn't know this, but I have already scheduled my very next testimony is with Katleho. So then when you mentioned her, I was like, oh, that's interesting because she's going to be the next episode after you.
Yeah, she played a big role.
That's cool.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, that's really cool. And then she's still here and involved in serving God as well. And so she's got her own story she'll tell. Yeah, I appreciate you telling your story and giving me the time to do that.
Yes, it's a pleasure.
I appreciate it. I think there's probably some things that maybe you've never shared before. I don't know if you have, but I think most people will be glad to hear another side to you. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you listening. Without a listener, this story can't be heard. If you enjoyed this episode or any others, please share it with someone else. Don't underestimate the power of a transformed life. Lastly, if you are not a Christian or were, but have since turned away, you can be. John 3:16 says God sent his only son, Jesus, to die for our sin. A simple prayer is all it takes to start over. Acknowledge your sin, recognize Jesus paid the price for that sin, and sincerely ask him to forgive you, and he will. Until next time, this is Rachel Heimberg, and you've been listening to Not the Same.